Hi guys, my name is Nick Broughton, I'm a Random Fish, and if you're Random Fish too, hit that subscribe button and we'll be Random Fishers together, because why not? Recently I put up a tweet not that long ago about doing more Star Wars and comic book character file episodes, because I wanted to do a bit more of what makes me me, and a lot of that is comic book characters, and a lot of it is Star Wars. I grew up with Star Wars, as many people did. I was born in the 90s. I was around the time of the special editions of the original trilogy, and of course, I was growing up when the prequels were being released. So it wasn't the best, but it was close enough. But there were some good things to come out of the prequels. Not many, but there were some good things to come out of the prequels. For example, we managed to get an animated series about the Clone Wars, which two of them, if you really want to be pedantic. One released in 2003, the other one first time released in the movie format anyway in 2008, and then the series was continued on from there. It stopped after approximately 5-6 seasons, and then another show, Star Wars Rebels, was created based around the events before A New Hope, but obviously after Revenge of the Sith with the Empire's Rise. But anyway, today I want to talk about one of the Sith Lords who is not talked about much in the main movies, because he's not a prominent character, he's not a very powerful character, he's not considered a powerful character because he died in one movie. And that character is, of course, Darth Maul. For those of you who are thinking I was talking about Qui-Gon Jinn, I'll do him in another episode. I'm not doing him now though, I'm going to do Darth Maul. I'm going to do a highlights of history, if you will, and then after I've done that, obviously, that's where I'll do a lot of it, and I'll do some opinions of stuff sort of along the way. Darth Maul is one of the characters whose backstory was created a lot of in the comics and in the animated shows, because he wasn't particularly well thought out during the movie. He was brought out there was a book brought out about Darth Maul that is unfortunately now no longer considered canon. Thanks to Disney's takeover and their elimination of the expanded universe now under Legends. I would focus on Legends, but unfortunately if I do that, I'm just going to get all kinds of confused, I'll get you all kinds of confused, and I'd just rather not go there. So we're going to focus a little bit. So Darth Maul was born on a planet called Dathomir, which is ruled predominantly by women, called the Night Sisters, led by Mother Talzin. Maul and the rest of the male folk are kept on, I think it's on the other side of the planet, or kept in another village away from where the Night Sisters are. They are, they're all they've all got horns, they've all got red skin, it's all very predominant for them. He's taken away by Palpatine at a very, very young age, infant age, much like how Jedi were taken away from their families in infancies. And he's trained ruthlessly under Palpatine to become an assassin first off, not a Sith Lord. Why, you may ask? Because Palpatine at that point was still serving under Darth Plagueis, another Sith Lord who trained Palpatine in the ways of the dark side and is then killed by Palpatine later on. Once he has done so, he makes Maul his apprentice. He actually makes him Darth Maul as opposed to just being Maul the assassin, if you will. Maul had many missions after being made a Sith, and also during the time he was an assassin, and killing off various people, including actually a couple of Jedi who didn't even know the Sith were even still alive. Because at this point in the timeline, you have to understand the Jedi believed the Sith to be extinct. This predominantly being because of the concept of the rule of two, something else which I will get into much later on down the line in another video. Maul attempts to, during episode 1, to force Queen Amidala of Naboo to sign a treaty with the Trade Federation, and thus would allow Palpatine to gain some sort of foothold into Naboo, and therefore grant his allies something to really control. This doesn't go according to plan, unfortunately. He does end up fighting off against the two Jedi, Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi, who, if you are any kind of Star Wars fan, you will know that Kenobi ends up becoming Anakin Skywalker's apprentice, and of course Luke Skywalker's apprentice. Apprentice? Master. Brain. What is that? But here's the thing. Once he does that, once he takes on those two Jedi, he ends up killing Qui-Gon Jinn, and Obi-Wan Kenobi ends up slicing him in half, causing his front half to fall down a crevice and his legs to go somewhere else, possibly. I don't know. This would be the end of Maul, and it shows that it is in the films. In Clone Wars, the animated series, however, it is discovered that Maul is actually alive and living on a junkyard planet. How is he alive? His hate kept him alive. This is how powerful Maul actually is. This is why I feel that he was slightly discredited by the movies, because he wasn't shown to be all that powerful, and yet in the comics and in the cartoons, he is shown to be this incredibly powerful character because he survived years and years of this pain, of this anger. Anakin was training under Obi-Wan for 10 years between episodes 1 and episodes 2, and that was before the Clone Wars even began. The way this timeline seems to be working is that it's when Obi-Wan has the full beard and the short hair, makes him look more like the Alec Guinness Ben Kenobi, and Anakin's gone with long hair, and he's actually able to do this. So it's fairly late in the Clone Wars timeline, but it's not the most amazing thing ever, and it does very much create this much greater sense of Maul, in that he is much more powerful than we give him credit for. So he's been, living off his hate for Kenobi and the fact that he wants vengeance on Kenobi for more than 10 years. I'd say for about 11, maybe 12 years, he's been living in isolation on this planet, going steady crazy. And he's created these legs, these spider legs for himself. His brother Savage, who goes off to find him, ends up taking him back to Dathomir, where their leader, Mother Talzin, ends up fixing Maul's legs and creates new ones for him. He and Savage then go off on this little rampage throughout the galaxy, attempting to gain credits and gain power and all this sort of thing to make all their enemies fall. Maul's entire premise for wanting to do any of this is to convince Sidious to take him back as an apprentice. I think it's because he realizes that Sidious has gone on to another apprentice, but he believes that to be a pretender, to not be the real one. At some point, he feels that his brother could be his apprentice, and he is attempting to train him, and that's fine. But it does feel like he's doing a lot of what he says in some of the last episodes that he's in Clone Wars. He says that he did all of this in hopes of returning to Sidious's side. The reason why I bring this up is because Palpatine, throughout the season, throughout the whole time that Maul was back, throughout the show, he said that Maul was not a threat. He could not care less what Maul had been up to, or what the two brothers had been up to, because he just didn't care. He just didn't think he was a threat. Yet Maul and Savage end up creating this army and end up conquering a planet of a fairly prominent warrior race, the planet of Mandalore, where Maul ends up possessing something called a dark saber, which is essentially a lightsaber but black. It's kind of cool. It's got a samurai sort of blade, hilt, and all this sort of thing, which is kind of cool. But Palpatine, once he discovers that happened, once he discovers not only is Maul and Savage, running a planet, but they have become a much bigger threat than he anticipated, and he ends up going in Sidious form, walks onto Mandalore, and fights them with his two red lightsabers, and predominantly just wants to kill them in order to sort of point out to Maul that he has been replaced and that he is no longer Sidious's apprentice. He's no longer worth his time. The battle does unfortunately end with Sidious killing Savage. Spoilers, I'm sorry. Killing Savage and capturing and torturing Maul for his own purposes. Maul ends up escaping, which you can find out in a comic called Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir, which is a very cool comic. I definitely think I recommend that you read it. That was me. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that's really cool. There's, but after this, you would then get into Rebels. Rebels, if you will, it takes place before New Hope happens, and it focuses on a very small group of rebels, including one of the last Jedi ever, Kanan Jarrus, the last Padawan. If you, again, read the comics on that, very cool, very nice, very heartfelt. Because that's really what his story is. It's a very heartfelt story. It's a very sad story. It really is. It's nice, but it's incredibly sad to sort of watch and to read. I know, you can tell from my inflection of voice. But anyway, moving on. Kanan Jarrus ends up meeting a boy called Ezra Bridger, who he discovers is strong in the Force and starts training him to be a Jedi. During one of the seasons of the show, they go to a planet called Malachor, which is predominantly a Sith planet. Was a Sith planet, I should say. Back when the Sith were a much bigger organization, back when there were so many more of them. And there's a temple, there's a Sith temple, and they go to this temple seeking knowledge on a way to destroy the Sith, or Darth Vader, as they can see him, as well as his group of his own personal assassins called Inquisitors. Watch the show to really give it justice. It's really quite cool. Season 2 I would definitely recommend, purely for Vader's existence in the show, as well as the Inquisitors that you get, as well as in the first season you get the Inquisitors. It's really cool, and all of that. But within the show, Maul is on Malachor himself because he's looking to gain access to the temple so he can gain knowledge on how to kill Vader, as well as Sidious, or their Emperor. Maul has finally dropped the Darth in his name. He is now just Maul. When you meet him, it is almost as if he wants to fight with the rebels, as you get it throughout the show. Obviously, he has his own agenda, as we all sort of foresaw would happen. He has gained a new double-bladed lightsaber, as he had in Episode 1, not a one-blade, as he had in the Clone Wars, which is kind of cool. And he goes around basically trying to find answers for things, and we find out in the next season, where he's more in, that he's looking for Kenobi. He's looking for Obi-Wan, because he wants to end the fight. He wants to end the fight between them. He's so aware that Kenobi is alive, and he knows Kenobi is alive somewhere, but he wants to know where so we can find him and finally kill him, because Kenobi is, to him, the ultimate adversary. He is the ultimate what if, the ultimate victory that he can try and ascertain. And he ends up meeting the older Ben Kenobi now on Tatooine, who's looking after Luke. Obviously from a distance, because as you can see in Episode 4, he is more of a hermit. He doesn't really go out much, but he has been keeping an eye on Luke for a very long time. The end of Maul essentially is him and Obi-Wan stood on either side of this campfire that's been taken out by sand that he's kicked on it. And all you get is the glow of their lightsabers. They stand there for ages, just holding them in place, sort of their feet moving a little bit, waiting for that one moment. And then Maul leaps into the fight, and it's not a massive fight, it's not an epic fight. It's literally 5, maybe 4 strokes, and it's done. And that was just brilliant to watch. And Maul's death was so peaceful, I guess is the phrase, because you don't expect him to have that kind of death, but he is it's such a death that you would see in a samurai movie. Like, that's what they went for in that confrontation, was that it was like two ancient samurai sort of facing each other for that one final confrontation. The build-up is massive, the fight is so much short, and it's brilliant to watch. It's brilliant to behold, it really is. This, above everything else, is what makes Maul cool, to me. Maul was such a short character as you got him in Phantom Menace, yet within Clone Wars and Rebels, you suddenly get all of this amazing backstory. You get these amazing characters that he works alongside. Hell, I mean, there's a character in Clone Wars called Asajj Ventress, who is Dooku's assassin throughout the show. And she's one of the Night Sisters. And when she is essentially fired by Dooku, and she goes off on the run while he's trying to have her killed, he goes back to Dathomir and he gets Savage, who is Darth Maul's brother. And that's the reason why he chooses him, because he's Maul's brother. He assumes that because he and Maul are from the same stock, it's implied that he and Darth Maul have the same sort of basis. Also, there's a giant competition to find out who gets into Dooku's service, so that's kind of cool to watch. But that's what I feel like it almost felt like to me. Like, it didn't feel like it was because of a show of strength or a show of who could stand out the more. It was more along the lines of going, right, who is the closest to Darth Maul that I can get a hold of that can be controlled easier? Because Maul is very much his own entity. He lived for hatred. He lived for pain and for anguish, because this is what Palpatine bestowed on him. Nothing but anguish and pain. And it was so cool to see his character so well done like that. I think this is where I'm really going to sort of leave off, because I do think that a lot of this has to be experienced. I recommend you see Seasons 2 and 3 of Rebels, Seasons 4 and 5 of Clone Wars. If you want to just watch the Maul stuff, good for you, go for it. Also read the Darth Maul comics from Marvel. Brilliant concept. Even read some of the Legends material that you can find out there, because there are, while it's not canon, it does still give you a nice little insight into Darth Maul's life and into his training and into all of that. It's not canon, but it's so well done. While I'm here, I'm just going to plug a couple of other channels. Yes, last time you heard me plugging my older brother's channel, Hardcore Pornography. I'm not doing that here. I'm going to plug other Star Wars channels. Star Wars Explained, I think, is a brilliant channel. Dash Star, I absolutely love him. Dash Star has some of the most brilliantly honest opinions about Star Wars, in my personal opinion. I think he's incredibly good. I think he's incredibly good for what he's doing with Star Wars. And if you want to sort of watch his videos for a much better conversation. Also Variant for stuff about Darth Maul, and of course Darth Vader and all of that sort of thing. I think on Variant there is actually a versus thing they do where they did Darth Maul versus Darth Vader to see who would come out on top on that situation. You've got to check that out. It's sick. It really is. It's fucking sick. Please check those channels out. Please subscribe to this channel. Please like this video. I know that there's only, what, 13. There's 13 subscribers on my channel. I don't care. Please, guys, just keep sharing the video. Keep watching. It's lovely to see you guys watching. It's lovely to see all of this stuff happening. Please keep it up, and let's all be random fishes together and just random fish out.